I'm still sat here with my colleague, Dr. Emily Ryle, and one of the issues in philosophy of sport that I think is interesting, is the idea of sport and its connection to kind of ethical or moral education or character formation. Does playing sport make you a good person? Can it have that potential?
Well, my immediate answer would be, well, you only have to look at the newspapers every day to see all of these sort of fallen heroes, these cheats and drug takers and all these other incidents. So obviously sport doesn't necessarily make you a good person, but does it? I mean, there's this notion about sport building character, sport being kind of a moral good. And we particularly see it today in kind of the political establishments and educationalists that are trying to promote this notion of competition through sport as being a kind of moral educator. I've got my doubts about that. I think that it can. I mean, there's been a really interesting idea by Graham McPhee that suggested that sport can act as a moral laboratory, in the sense that because the rules are so clearly defined, you can work out what is and isn't acceptable, and sort of it's much clearer in that respect than it is in other aspects of life.
Does that mean, that's quite interesting, does that mean you discover about yourself whether you're happy to be the kind of person who cheats, who dives when they're playing football, which is in the World Cup, and lots of sportsmanship and gamesmanship and things, but you find out about yourself whether you feel you really want to be the kind of person who plays cleanly and doesn't cheat and stands up when they could fall over, or whether you're quite happy to win at all costs and things. So is that what moral laboratory is kind of getting at?
I think so, to a certain degree, because it forces you to have to reevaluate your behaviour and whether you kind of you're confronted with either a referee blowing a whistle or a coach shouting at you or your teammates sort of applauding you for good sportsmanship. So you're confronted with, I suppose, reactions to particular ethical behaviour.
Like in normal life, we can so easily often justify and come up with justifications that led us to think we were doing the right thing. In sport, the rules being so stark, I mean, if you're cheating, you know you're cheating. You might think it's okay to cheat or not, but at least there's some kind of, it's much more rule bound in that sense, and it's a simplified moral arena.
I think so, and I think that's why educationalists often do suggest that it's a useful tool or laboratory for children to learn in, because the rules are so stark, they're so clear, and they're told whether they can or cannot do something. And in life, it's much more blurred.
And I guess you see on all parts of the political spectrum, people wanting to use sports as somehow a paradigm. So you do find people talking about competition. On the other hand, you do find people towards what I guess we call the left of politics talking more about how sport can teach cooperation. Exactly.
I mean, there's an idea in the philosophy of sport that competition is actually about kind of this mutual quest for excellence. So it's a cooperative venture where you're both, you and your opposition are striving towards being better players, being better and more kind of skillful in what you're doing.
And so it's a kind of blend of cooperation through competition.
Yeah, so that's a really kind of nice way of understanding competition, rather than this very kind of antagonistic, kind
of neo-Darwinistic.
Yeah, exactly, where you're overcoming your opposition and you're crushing them to the ground. So. But
it has a very different kind of political flavour to talk about a mutual quest for excellence, rather than talk about defeating somebody, being the best.
Which is why I don't think competition is necessarily a bad thing, because it's about the way in which competition is approached, and recognising that you can strive, even if you end up losing, you can still strive for excellence, rather than being kind of defeated and you kind of feeling, well, I might as well give up.
So competition very much needs a kind of a cultural, political, sociological context to make sense in sport.
I think so, and I think that's it's important for teachers and coaches to recognise that.
I guess there's a very different feeling between the elite competitive sports we see on TV, or if you see football or things of this sort that have winners and things, and the mass participation sports where we see in popular culture where people compete in huge numbers in fun runs and marathons and things, and there is a winner, but the vast majority of people in those races have no hope of ever being a winner, so they're doing it for some other reason that might still be seen as improving, or people see it as not just physically good for their health, but kind of good for them personally.
I think so, and you have to make a distinction between professional sport, which is a very kind of instrumental attitude of this kind of win at all costs, and the amateur ideal where you're winning, you're participating for many other reasons. It's not just about winning, and I think there are huge problems with professional sports and those ideals.
So it's quite a big line to be drawn between the two, and actually the issue that actually were originally sport as moral education. It seems like it does need philosophy after all. It's complicated.
Well, as always, it's complicated.
Thank you.